health, freedom, and purpose. You don't need to find purpose. You need to clear the noise so it can find you. And that clarity doesn't come from searching harder. It comes from clearing what's in the way. I believe it's only then that you can really dial in on your purpose, because otherwise, guess what your purpose really is? It's a distraction.
I love the fact that we've linked purpose and mindset and
freedom and health.
Because health in all 7 areas of life is freedom in all 7 areas of life, right?
Health, freedom can lead to purpose expressing itself. It's an inside job, not an outside job. Don't look for purpose outside of yourself. Hey there, and welcome to Mindset Matters, where we challenge old belief systems, consider new perspectives, and help you design a life that aligns with who you are truly meant to be. How's that?
That's good. Hey, hi, hon. I love your t-shirt. I hope all the people that are listening could see your t-shirt, but if they're not on YouTube, they don't see it.
It's very nice. It's bearded hooligan.
Yeah, that's Juan's company, right? Your trainer.
I got a
Our trainer. He used to be my trainer.
I got a new friend. Oh boy. Okay, so we got a few things to talk about. So health, freedom, and purpose. I want to connect the dots. And I have a couple of quotes that kind of showed up for me. And that is that you don't need to find purpose. You need to clear the noise so it can find you.
Oh, zing. Slow down, cowboy. Say that again.
Yeah, it came to me in a meditation, right? Which is you don't need to find purpose. You need to clear the noise so it can find you.
That's beautiful. And
that clarity doesn't come from searching harder. It comes from clearing what's in the way. You know, we talk about clarity equals velocity. It's one of the themes, and we just keep getting there. But intellectually, we understand it. You know, like you say that to somebody and they go, well, that's a really cool saying. I get that. But this goes back to an old coach of ours, Anurag Gupta. And, you know, you say clarity equals velocity and people go, got it. And then he would, in that instance, go, tell me
what did you get?
And you go, well, you know, I get it. Clarity equals velocity. Okay. Well, how do you get clear? There's so many layers. And this is the whole point of that kind of phrase, is understanding that to gain the velocity, you need to get clarity. But clarity doesn't come easily. You have to say, what do I want to be clear about? So let me give it another layer of context. So when we talk about health, you know, the first thing that goes into most people's mind is the physical health. That's generally what it is. They may go into mental health. That's a common term, right? Physical health, mental health. Those are kind of things that show up and are quite common. And then when we think about freedom, well, if you ask somebody what freedom means, they often will connect financial freedom. You know, if I have enough money, I'm free. But we know, and we've heard the stories, that isn't true. You know, there's billionaires out there who are just a frickin' shit show.
Not happy.
And they're not happy, and they don't feel freedom at all. And then within our world, and even on our own journey, we're always, I don't want to say we're always, that's an absolute, and that's not the case. But we've come to the conclusion many years ago, and as we've done all this work over the past several years, we get to what our purpose and what our mission is. So we understand that. Yet many of our clients are looking for purpose. And so I don't want to minimize how difficult that can be to find that, but ultimately purpose in, you know, for human beings is being a contribution, being significance, having significance in other people's lives, making a difference. The minute it's all about you all of the time, that's where depression kicks in, unfulfillment kicks, you know, feeling unfulfilled. So we'll get into that a little bit more. But I want to add one thing. And, you know, when we think about clarity, and we just had this discussion the other day with JJ when we were talking about the most common thing and the most common hidden belief that's not so hidden, and that is, I'm not enough. And a good friend of mine, Jazz Takar, he's got a whole brand built around you are enough. He's got t-shirts. I got one of his hoodies. You are enough. So we know that intellectually, like we in our own mind know that we are enough, but we operate in a story that we're not enough. And then what we got to in this conversation and have gotten to several times is that, and we talked about it on one of our podcasts, which is I'm not worthy. So here's what showed up for me when a friend, a client, a listener had reached out thinking, knowing that she is enough, but feeling like I'm not enough. And because of the journey that you were recently on, in the realization that you're enough and you don't operate on top of I'm not enough, but the hidden underneath I'm not enough is I'm not worthy. I just got to that like a little while ago. So,
and it's so sneaky, right?
You're following my train of thought there?
Yeah, totally. It's super sneaky, right? Mom showed up as we were talking about generosity recently, and again with Jadine, and she came out for a meeting, and we're going through this whole thing, and we're talking about generosity, and I'm like, and she's like, "You're so overly generous," and it hit me between the eyes, and I went, you know what? I think sometimes this overly generous thing is a cover for whatever the hidden belief is. And what it drilled down to was that I'm not enough, or maybe I have to give more in order to prove myself.
No,
and at
you're
this
not
age,
worthy.
oh my God. And this age and this stage of my life, for me to get that at this point, it just popped open. And you should see the money and the abundance and all the stuff that's come in this week for me, like from investments to like people just giving me and sending me money and compliments and testimonials. And it's like, I was in my own way.
Because you're operating on top of not that I'm not enough, I'm not worthy.
Remember Saturday Night Live, guys, back in the day in the 70s? I'm not worthy. That was what the whole self-help, stuff happened back in the 70s.
So interesting, right? And but by the way, is we're often, we've had many people over the years talk about our generosity, and that is our nature. I think we're pretty generous, pretty giving of time, of energy, of contribution in terms of big conversations. And the generosity is sincere, but there is a part of it that we're operating on top of is we're not worthy. And that's such a
cross the line. If you cross the line into over generosity, it's like our strength overdone is our weakness.
Yes.
Our strengths overdone
are crazy.
Right.
So if you're listening to this, if we were to unpack I'm not worthy, it really is, look at some of the actions that you have or some of the things that show up. This is a really common one where people, for example, and I'm guilty of this, is that we don't value our time, or we can't find a way to value our time because we're operating on top of I'm not worthy of a value for my time. And so I'm not worthy. I spend hours researching and studying and doing all the things, and then you go to charge somebody and they go, well, that's crazy. And then all of a sudden you've got this whole story that goes, oh, I must not be worthy. But the reality of it is that the person that you're talking to doesn't value themselves enough to actually invest in themselves. So even if you can put a clear return on that investment of investing in themselves, it's so convoluted. And this is, of course, always the work that we're doing at any given point. And I've met so many people over the years that they have no problem. It's $500 an hour, it's $1,000, it's a $5,000 weekend, it's a $10,000 week, whatever it is. They don't even think twice about it.
Yeah.
And they command those kind of values because they don't operate on top of I'm not worthy. It's the opposite of that. So it's just something to think about. It's not really what the conversation is about today, but it was a sidebar, So there we go. Okay.
It's funny. These always go off the rails, especially because you're never telling me what we're talking about in advance. So then I have to kind of like just read and react. That's a hockey term. You got to read and react.
You got to read and react. That's and I like it that way. So we know, based on many years of working with people coaching and doing all the things that we do, that people just there's a gap for many. who are, for those of you who are listening to this podcast, there's a part of it where there's something missing. There's a gap for you that these kinds of conversations fill. It's something that gets you thinking, and that's what we're here to do. It's what we're inspired to do. It's part of our mission, part of our purpose as we go on our own journey, is to share with you the insights, to study the research, the way we live our life, and the success that we've had and the challenges we bump up against. And so many people are searching for purpose. They're looking for that mission. Why are they here? What is life all about? And it doesn't matter even age. I mean, I think as you go through those milestone birthdays, the 5s and the 0s, and then you cross paths and you're 40 and you're 50 and you're 60, and you go through these phases of life. And if you don't get to what your real purpose is, what your values are, then you're always out of alignment, never feeling quite fulfilled, always searching for that happiness that you think is outside of you. Here's the fundamental, is what we have come to. I don't think we've done a great job of articulating it. Is purpose isn't outside of us. It's an inside job, and if I was to give it an analogy, we think about health and we think about freedom and we think about purpose. I would argue that that's ultimately what most are searching for, is that purpose. But when we talk about health, again, we think about physical health, mental health. But in the context of the work that we do, we cover 7 areas of life, which is really the key to understanding health, is because, you got vocational. Let's go down the list really quickly. Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, vocational, financial, familial, social. I think I covered them all.
Where are we healthy in all 7 areas?
That's the thing, is that we look at, so where are you? Are you healthy vocationally? Are you in a job that lights you up, that you love? Because if you're not, you're going to be shut down. Is that the pathway to purpose? No, absolutely not. If financially you're not healthy, and you have to define health as, it's one thing, yes, I pay all my bills, but I'm not saving enough money for the future, or I'm always 30, 60, 90 days behind, or I'm living off my credit cards. That's not financial health. How do you ever get to the purpose of life if you're operating on top of these dis-ease, if you will, within the context of those 7 areas of life? So when we open up the door and the conversation to finding purpose, is understanding that we need to be healthy in those 7 areas of life. And it's always going to be varying degrees. We can feel really strong financially, but we're just unsatisfied with life. We're not happy with our, mental state of being, our familial state of being, our social state of being. And that is, in fact, what gets in our way of having that purpose and that mission. So I'm going to keep working through this. But I'll stop and talking so that you can make any comments that you might have right now.
Oh, yeah. And I'm totally not prepared for that because I was bought into what you were saying.
Okay, well, I'll keep going then. I'll keep going. This isn't a monologue. Stephanie's just trying to catch up. I often do that to her. So, not her fault. It's all me. So, I kind of, in the thought of that I had is that, if we were to give it a metaphor, if you will, many people are kind of walking around, and I'm going to say they've got keys in their pocket, but they don't know what door those keys are for. Is it for health, freedom, purpose? And they get frustrated because they keep opening doors that don't take them where they want to go, because they're looking at external doors. And the reality of it is that they're internal doors that we have to unlock. We have to look at, where are we in the context of our health, financially, vocationally, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, etc. So, we look for these doors outside of ourselves when actually we need to go internal. We need to look inside. We need to think about what we're thinking about. We need to take responsibility and have the awareness of our thoughts. And it's not any one thing, it's all of those things. And then we trip up because we bump into our limiting beliefs. And those, of course, are based on past wounds and, fear of judgment, etc. So let's talk about the fact that you do have the keys. You're not lost. You're just trying to use the keys in the wrong doors. So
right.
Let's unpack. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah. I just had a thing that popped into my head because this morning, just after my meditation, I got up early because, of course, we're babysitting Tiger, our friend Mel's little Maltese.
Yeah, pocket dog, purse dog, pocket dog, whatever you call them. Yeah.
Which is so opposite, right, to
Yeah.
our giant Bernese mountain dogs. But anyway, it's so fun. And he's right at my feet right now. And he's talking to me. And I was in my meditation this morning, and one thing popped up when we were talking about, the 7 areas of life. And I'm really, really into this whole concept of mind shui. And JD actually brought up a really cool picture in my mind about what it could look like, when you bring somebody in to help you put things in the right places in your home. But what if we're the people that can help you put the right things in your mind, right? In the 7 areas of life. And what popped up on this morning was, for some people, they don't even consider health until their health is compromised.
Mm-hmm.
And health is everything, right? Everything goes to the side, whether it's they're not prepared financially or socially, or they're not supported, they have to go into the system or whatever. Everything is health. And they would give anything to have and to be healthy. And I was thinking about it based on the 7 areas of life and based on our context for living and the work that we're doing with Mind Shui Wei. And how do we, as people, as humans, as people who are working in our purpose, create a conversation where people are saying, okay, yes, health is important. And if it's not up right now, at least elevate it. At least elevate your fitness, your nutrition, something. So if vocation goes sideways, if you lose all your friends, if you lose, you have a financial hit, are you able to work through it mentally, emotionally, and physically? That really hit me hard this morning.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing about it. So the whole context for Mind Shui and the Mind Shui way, let's just keep giving that a little bit of context for listeners. And that is that, Mind Shui is like feng shui for the mind. So in other words, when we clear the clutter of our mind, we actually start to create energy, have flow, see the direction that we're going. If your brain is all cluttered, it's like if a room is cluttered and you walk in and you go, okay, we got to clean up this mess. And then all of a sudden you see a window. And you go, holy cow, there's light coming through.
There's a window. What?
There's a window. And that, in my world, the Mind Shui way, and Mind Shui being feng shui for the mind, is rearranging the clutter in our brains, maybe throwing some shit out and being able to see the light, being able to have that light come in. So let's keep going through this kind of thought process, is that health, first off, when we talk about health, it isn't limited to our physical health or even our mental health. It is about all 7 areas of life. Now, the one thing we haven't talked about that I brought up was freedom. Well,
that word has so many layers.
Freedom. Well, think about it. So we can have freedom if we have unpacked or are aware of those limiting beliefs. The detachment from the internal constraints that we have in those often hidden limiting beliefs, whether it be not enough, I'm alone, I'm not worthy, as some examples of the most common, I would say, limiting beliefs. So we don't have freedom as long as we're trapped in the constraints of our limiting beliefs. If we're trapped in the only perspective we have, or we hang on to this perspective instead of shifting our perspective so that we have a different perception. And that is such a powerful conversation. Perspective creates our perception. And if our perception is negative, if our perception is that we are limited, if our perception is that we're not enough, we're not worthy, and we have those, until we shift that perspective, we cannot have a different perception of what's going on for us. So for me, what I've come to realize is that whenever I'm bumping up against something, I'm training myself. It's getting really being part of just how I operate now. It's part of my operating system that I'm upgrading. And that is to ask myself the question, what is another perspective I can take? And it's not to make what's happening okay, but it's to actually question my perspective so that I understand that I can shift perception. And then once I become conscious of it, I can come to a decision. But I have to start with, am I needing to look at this differently, as opposed to having my ego? And this is so important. I think it really boils down to our ego needs to be right. And I want to say that and understand that we joke about being right fighters and all the rest of it, but ultimately our ego needs to be right. And that happens within us. In other words, if your operating system and your hidden belief is I'm not enough, or I'm not worthy, or I'm all alone, and I've got to handle things on my own, there's nobody there to help me. If we have that, if we're operating on top of that, our ego will make that right. It will draw history from our past that we may or may not be aware of, but it will actually confirm that we are right. So we go through this.
It's like a magnet.
It is.
Yeah, it pulls it.
Right. So if we consider the concept of freedom, we have to look at freedom and going, we need and want to be, in order to get to our purpose, we first have to look and become or set ourselves up to be free from the internal constraints that we have. That's the first part of that, right? And then we talked about health, being healthy and being aware. Now, there's always work to be done. And in any given time, you may be financially, you may be very healthy, but mentally, emotionally, vocationally, perhaps you're not. You're a mess. So when we look at that, and that's ebb and flow, and one bucket is empty. If I always look at it that way, if the 7 areas of life are buckets, they're not always full. And I mean full in a good way. Some are really low. Oh, I got to spend a little bit more time on my relational, that relational part of that area of my life. Relationally, how am I doing? Socially, familial, whatever that might be, is we look at those buckets and say, I need to pay a little bit more attention to that. So that's having the awareness in those 7 areas of life. As you get to understanding and having that awareness, I believe it's only then that you can really dial in on your purpose, because otherwise, guess what your purpose really is? It's a distraction. It's a distraction. You think it's your purpose, you make it your purpose, and all it is a distraction from what you need to work on for you. So that's where I'm kind of going with this. Anything you want to comment on right now?
Oh, wow. That came out of left field. I was thinking about, purpose being a distraction. That never really occurred to me, because I think, it's like the Save the Whales people. They got to save the whales, they got to climate change. They got to, they put all their energy when really
their life is a shit show.
Yeah. But it looks good on the outside, or it gives them, what's the word? It's like a virtue signal, right? So you do all these really great stuff, And then, but when you're at home by yourself, you can't stand yourself.
Exactly. You can't. Well, as a matter of fact, you can't even be alone. Here's an exercise. If you're listening, we're going to do this exercise. We're not going to do it, but we're going to give you this exercise to do. And you've done this with many of your clients. We've done this ourselves. And it's not easy, by the way. It really messes you up when the first time you do it. And that is to go sit in a chair and be alone and see how long you can sit alone. No music, no meditation, just sitting alone, being with yourself. You're not reading, you're not journaling, you're just sitting. See how long you can do that before you get really uncomfortable and have to move.
Yeah, not just move, or you want to reach out, or you want to listen to check a message or whatever, right? You just pull it.
Oh, you want to scroll. You want to scroll. Where's my phone? Oh, by the way, put your phone in another room, right?
Yeah, right.
It is really a challenge for many. So if we start to say, okay, well, how can we unpack this? First off, it's always awareness. It always starts with awareness. Think about what you're thinking about. Think about what you're focused on right now. Oh, I don't have enough money, or I don't have enough friends, or my wife or husband is an asshole or a bitch, whatever the story is. Like, where are you complaining? My kids are not smart. I don't know. Or my kids, I need to protect my children at all costs. We talked about that on one of our episodes. My point is that let's ask ourselves a different set of questions. Perspective. How do we change our perspective? So if we look at those 7 areas of life and we look at them as buckets, ask ourselves, where are we depleted? Where do I feel bound? For example, in a relationship, in a social structure, in a job, I got no control. I'm handcuffed, right? I can't escape this.
Right.
Or where am I forcing or chasing purpose instead of letting it emerge?
Or
and
letting it find me. I love that. Let's not step over that.
Well, emerging and find me. Yeah, I look at those the same. So think about, our own journey over the years. We got pretty clear a long time ago that what lights us up is being a contribution, supporting, coaching, going on this journey, and we've made it very, very clear, on any given day, our life could be a shit show by our standards, but we're always on a journey of being the best version of ourselves, uncovering, unpacking, getting clear. Think about how many years of work we've done, and all of a sudden I'm not worthy shows up, because it's really subtle. And by the way, go back to our ego telling us we're right, confirming that we're right. It's a hidden belief, but we enforce it, and our ego has us do that. It's so freaking amazing. I think it's so cool when you start to uncover this next layer of the journey. And we're on the journey with everybody that's listening. We too are on the journey, unpacking, uncovering. And the more I write, the more we kind of unpack the Mind Shui way and the whole concept and context for Mind Shui, we really start to get clear and be able to be a contribution in a powerful way, because that is always how we've operated. Think about that. For the 35 years that you and I have been hanging out, it's always been about being a contribution. Think about what you did with quantum speed back in the day when you were working with the Oilers. It was a job, but it unfolded as realizing that, how can you take an NHL hockey player and have them skate better? You can do some really cool things, and you're a technician and you understand biomechanics and all the rest of it, so you can help them be better players. But frick, they're at the top of the game. They're in the NHL. Okay, well, I'm going to move from the 4th line to the 1st line. Okay, is my skating going to do that? Maybe. But what you got to, and what really took you on the whole journey of working with athletes and business people, is that you are gifted at what you do. You've worked your ass off honing your skating skills. And yes, you want to be better, but what else could possibly be in the way? And that is the mental component, and not the psychological part of it. That's part of it, but it's only a small part of it, because what did you get to? When I clean up the other 7 areas of my life, or the other 6 areas of my life,
I skate faster. They skated faster.
I skated faster. When my relationship got better because I learned how to communicate with my significant other,
I skated faster.
I skated faster. What the hell's going on? When I got clear on my purpose, when all of a sudden I understood who I am in the context of being an NHL hockey player, holy cow, my whole life changed. And I skated faster.
I know, right? That was my secret. I can't believe you just let my secret out.
I know. I did.
But it's also with the ice dancers. It's also with the musicians and the rock stars and the ballroom dancers and the opera singers that we've worked with. It's all the same journey.
It is always the same journey. With McKay CEO Forums, working with CEOs and understanding, and now being exposed, and I say exposed, I mean having the opportunity to listen in on top CEOs. I've joked about it's a little intimidating. I'm definitely not the smartest guy in the room, and I'm not the oldest. That's good. And the point is that all of a sudden it opens up a whole new doorway, which is to say we get to take our purpose and live our mission in a whole new kind of, realm or new capacity. But even at that level, people get in their own way because they are not free of the mental constraints. They are not healthy in all 7 areas of their life, yet they're focused on their physical health which is great, by the way. But where are you not healthy in other areas of your life? That's where freedom lives.
Right.
So the combination of all of that, I think you get to a place where ultimately, when you initially crack the code of understanding yourself, and then the journey of that, because it's a lifelong journey. Because as we age, as we get older, as we have different experiences, we meet different people, different things show up for us. And so it is a never ending journey. The next phase, I always go back to my gym analogy. Oh gosh, look at me. I'm lifting 100 pounds, but I'm sure I'm capable of lifting 110. Okay, let's try it. Let's stretch. Let's get uncomfortable. Let's take a chance of doing an extra. You're always on the path of getting stronger, getting better. And that's where true freedom lives. And then out of that, when you start to understand, when you can clear that clutter, mind shui, then purpose starts to show up. And I believe, I'm pretty convinced, and my ego needs to be right, that we all have to be clear on our purpose to live a fulfilled life where there is joy, where there is happiness, where there is a sense of contribution. It's got to be outside of ourselves.
It does. And what's interesting about that, hon, like my brother always says, Michael always says, we have to be willing to push the cart up the hill. And if it doesn't move, we still have to keep pushing. Like like purpose as humans, I think that's why we're here, is, to push the cart up the hill and not care if it moves. Because when we dig into what matters and what matters most, I mean, I don't know, for everybody it's different, but depending on what stage of life you're in, what 7 area is up for you right now. And I think that's what I love about the Mind Shui way, is that we get to determine and help people figure out what's up for them right now. Is it family? Is it finances? Is it vocation? Is it health? Like what are the top 3 or 4 values out of 7 that we can actually focus on right now? Because right now it's like everybody's trying to spin all the plates all at the same time, and it's exhausting. And to know that purpose comes and freedom comes from the clarity and the focus of knowing your purpose. And I think about freedom, and I love that word. And I know it's been vilified over the last little while, and especially in Canada. I think we should do a whole podcast on the definition of freedom, but freedom is the constraints of.
Those are outside constraints. But okay, but let's talk about that for a second. Nelson Mandela, solitary confinement for years, yet he was free. In his mind, he was free because he did the work.
Yep.
Funny joke about that, Nelson Mandela. I don't know who the comedian was, but it was awesome. It was so funny. And he was talking about how hard marriage is. Marriage is hard. Look at Nelson Mandela, in jail for however many years, solitary confinement. So he's locked up, and this comedian's going on. So he's locked up. He's in solitary confinement for 25 years. He comes out a better person for it and reconnects with his wife. And less than a year later, he's divorced.
He's divorced? Oh my God. Didn't you have a bunch of shoes or something? Was that the same woman?
It doesn't matter. My point is that, I thought it was quite funny how hard marriage is. You can live in solitary confinement for 25 years, but as soon as you get out and hang out with your wife, you have to get divorced. Anyways.
That's another podcast, is that our wives or significant others are the people that bring out the worst in us, right?
So here's where I want to go with this. I don't think we can really lean into and discover our true purpose until we start to clear the clutter, to understand that our health is more than just our physical and mental health. It is health in all aspects of our life. And that freedom comes from understanding that we are not free until we can at least entertain the thought and start to investigate where our mental constraints are. Because that's ultimately, I believe, what people are really searching for is freedom. Now, they make it about financial freedom, but let's take that whole thought process off. And because we look at that and we know it's not true. We know some very wealthy people who are just a shit show. They're a mess. They're not happy. They don't have joy. Their relationship
They're
sucks,
not healthy.
and they're not healthy in any way, shape, or form, physically or mentally. But they got a lot of money, and they can do anything they want, and they can get on their airplanes, or they can drive their Corvettes, or their Porsches, or their Bugattis. Doesn't matter. My point is that isn't freedom,
Right.
and we do the work to unpack those mental constraints. That's where freedom truly lives. And when you can set yourself free from those constraints, then we can start to understand what our purpose truly is. But if we're operating on top of this constant fight because our relationship sucks, our job sucks, or our physical, mental, emotional health is a mess because we don't know how to deal with shit that it comes at us. All of this body of work, and whether it's Marcus Aurelius, and those are great little hacks, by the way. They're philosophical, and I, as you know, have studied Stoicism for a long time. And it comes back to, what can you control? What can't you control? Well, here's what you can control. You can control your way of thinking, your view of the world. And if we don't ever question it, if we accept and say, well, my relationship is my relationship, it's just the way it is, and I'm going to have to put up with it, or I'm not willing to leave it, or I'm not willing to change because if I change, I'm going to lose friends. Well, that's the cost of being your greatest and being the best version of yourself, is sometimes it comes at the cost of relationships that no longer align with who you are. If you're going to change, if you're going to grow, there's going to be people that leave your life. They have to. It doesn't make them bad or doesn't make you bad. You're moving on to be and to lean into who you say you are and what your purpose is. Does any of that make sense?
Like that's a big conversation, and I think it really resonates with me because I, over the years, really realized that people have left my life. I haven't left anyone's life. I don't think I have,
No.
but I've really noticed that people have left my life, our life. Like we look every once in a while. We said the other day, it's like, I don't think we have any friends left. Like, what?
That's true. Well, what happens is this. We've used this metaphor, this analogy before, which is, in relationship, in friendships, in marriage, doesn't matter, in business and your team, is if everybody's kind of rowing the boat together, it all works. You get speed, you got velocity, you're going straight ahead, or you're going the direction that you all agree that you're going to go. But if people stop rowing the relationship boat and you're the only one rowing the boat,
you're going around in circles.
You're going around in circles. So if you ever want to test the relationship that you think you have, stop reaching out.
Or stop rowing.
Stop rowing.
See what happens.
In my world, that's reaching out. So stop rowing. Quit being the person that's texting, phoning. Hey, what are you doing? Are you coming over? What do you got going on? Hey, do you want to do something? Stop that. Just stop it.
Yeah, and you really find out who reaches out and who misses you.
Yeah.
Or who, and right now, I think in the last 4 to 5 years, we've realized that, there is a lot of separation and division. And I think there's a lot of confusion and maybe some insecurity in who do I reach out to, who is of like mind, who is going to understand who I've become in the last little while. Do I still have the same, can I still have the same conversations? I mean, there's people and couples and family that I really miss. And but I truly know that if we had a conversation today, it would be very different than the conversation we had before the pandemic or before everything had kind of blew up in the world. But my purpose hasn't changed. I don't think your purpose has changed. I love the fact that we've linked purpose and mindset and
freedom and health.
And freedom and health, because health in all 7 areas of life is freedom in all 7 areas of life, right? And I think about all the things that I've changed and undone, and now my lemon water before coffee and my workout before like the changes, that the incremental changes that can show up will also eliminate people in your life too, right? Like if you're not, hanging out and going drinking to the bar on Friday nights anymore, you're going to lose those friends. Right. But there's also freedom in that, because there's freedom to be yourself. And
just to be yourself,
freedom
to be who you truly are, and to tell yourself the truth, and to say that I am enough and I am worthy and this is who I am, and be courageous enough to live into that. That's where joy lives. That's where purpose lives. That's where happiness lives, is when you can be and feel like you're hanging out with the people that are okay with who you are, period. Yeah. Full stop.
And what's really fun, just to last thing, is that, I made some plans with the girlfriend tomorrow, and the plans changed, and she sent a message and she said, "I'm sorry." And I went, you know what, being a grown-up and being truly aligned in our values, you don't have to say sorry. It is what it is. And I accept that life will change in your world. I'm not attached to something that is a higher purpose than me in that moment. And she just was so grateful. Like, nobody's ever said it's okay. And I'm like, of course it's okay. I'm not attached.
It's all good.
All good.
All good. So as we wind this whole thing down, and let's break it down finally to an invitation to consider that you may be searching for, why am I here? What is my purpose? And, a mom or a dad say, my purpose is being a parent. Yes, it is. Right now, that's what's up for you. And then you say, who do I get to be as a parent? Who am I? And how am I guiding my children? So that is often the purpose of a parent. And that's what they hold. There's nothing more important to me than being an awesome parent. And I totally get that. But that too is still, to be the most awesome parent, you have to be the best version of yourself, because we are not judged in what we say. We are judged in how we are, how we're being. We are judged in our actions and what we're doing, not in our intentions. So as a parent, the more solid you are in your own identity and being the best version of yourself and doing the work, what better guidance can you have for your children to do the work and share that journey with them, and the discovery that they have, and guiding them in their own discovery and getting through their stuff. So the point is that, our health and our freedom, and when I talk about freedom, it really is about the detachment from the internal constraints that we have, and we have them without even realizing them. So the first thing is the awareness, and asking yourself, where am I in my own way? Shifting perspective so that your perception, not just of the outside world, but your perception of who you are, starts to shift. And the more that we do this work, the more that, think about, we're coming into 4 years of doing this podcast.
Wow.
And I think about who I was when I started this podcast, and I have no idea how I show up for listeners, but in my own life, by having these conversations, by doing this work, I know that I've evolved and I've changed, and I reset the trajectory. We collectively have reset our own trajectory for who we are as leaders, as people, as a couple, as friends. It really does come back to understanding that in order to be our greatest self and live our best life, we have to do this work.
We do. And what it comes down to for me is, to your point, is, what if I'm wrong? What if all the things that I believed all of these years, and what if I'm wrong? I don't have to be right. I can enter a conversation with a friend and say, you don't have to be sorry. And we can actually evolve as a couple 30 years later, 35 years later, and make a difference in the world, and not need to be right.
Yeah. Not need to be right. There is the phrase, your ego is not your amigo. Right. And I've often said, like I talked about before, many people are right fighters. So they just need to fight to be right. But
it's exhausting.
That's an external that, in that kind of thought process is external. But what I'm inviting everybody to consider is that you have a fight to be right. And it's an internal dialogue that tells you you are not enough, that you are not worthy, that you are doing it all alone. Those are kind of
Prove
three.
yourself.
What's
I'm
that?
I'm going to prove that I'm right.
I'm going to prove. And we prove it to ourselves. And we draw on past, whether that's conscious or subconscious. We pull past evidence that says, I am right, because historically, I see how I am. Historically, this is where I failed. Historically, this is where I was embarrassed. Historically, this is where I'm shamed. And not even realizing that we have shame statements. We have things that shame is being one of those things where we don't want to be exposed. And so we hide behind things. Our ego hides behind things, and it proves that we're right by telling ourselves a story. So I'm going to leave it there. Health, freedom can lead to purpose expressing itself. It's an inside job, not an outside job. Don't look for purpose outside of yourself. Go inside to really discover your purpose. And I'm going to give you the hack, which is always going to be about being a contribution. It's not about you. Quit navel gazing. Don't let your ego be right. Stephanie, I'm going to leave it on that.
Thanks, hon. That was really fun.